It was definitely not the absence of love, about which I used to believe that was all it took, that if you gave someone your whole heart, all your time, and your loyalty, they'd always stay. I was wrong. Because love isn't always the winner. Sometimes it gets outbid. Madeline Clark was everything I could have ever wanted, and positively never thought I would have. She showed up in her luxury convertible with a flat tire and an ice-to-fire persona at my father's auto shop. I was covered in oil and in a beat-up t-shirt, and I still remember how she initially pursed her nose until I made her laugh. It was that one laugh that made all the difference. The next day she went back, and again the one after that. Not for repairs, just to talk. We were drinking cups of coffee in the middle of the night, swapping secrets at dawn before I even realized it. We were together for 3 years. Against all odds, she was mine. Eli Hayes, the local boy from a small town with not-so-small dreams and an even bigger heart. We planned a life together, talked about opening a store in the city. She even helped me hash out drafts of the designs for Hayes Performance Customs, the high-end car shop I intended to own one day. She absolutely loved my ambition, so I thought. But love, under that set of privileges and expectations, also begins to wither. Her family hated me. They never outright said it, but they made their disdain obvious in their silence, in the way her father saw right through me at dinners, in the way her mother asked her in front of me if she was going through a rebellious phase. I never got beyond the gate to their mansion, just them and me, like receiving a package. Maddie would laugh and say she didn't care, give me a kiss on the cheek and whisper that she only wanted me. Then came Lucas Donovan. He was all that I was not, rich, famous, linked. She was presented to him by her father at a charity gala. I remember the first time I saw them in a paper together. My chest ached. She said it was nothing, just formalities, politics. But suddenly, she was busier, distant. Her calls got shorter, her texts got later. "What going on?" I asked her. She needed to think, she said. One evening it was pouring rain, and she showed up soaked and trembling at the garage. I thought she was coming back to me, but she came to say goodbye. "My family is right, Eli," she murmured between sobs. "You're sweet, but not what they want me to do. I want to have faith that everything will be all right if I only follow my heart, but I'm scared. I'm sorry." That was it. No fight. No begging. Nothing but the falling rain and my hair shattering. 2 weeks later, I was staring at photos of her and Lucas on a yacht in Monaco. That's when the pain turned to rage. She didn't just leave me, she replaced me for some newer, shinier model, something her family could support. I never read the tabloids after that. Every picture of her smiling next to him was a knife. I buried myself in work. I quit sleeping. I asked to have sex. In my skin, I became a ghost. But pain, terrible as it was my fuel. I worked every day, went to night class, automotive engineering, performance mods, electric systems, everything I could. What I had imagined as Hayes Performance Customs was more than a dream. It was a mission. I put in 16-hour days, saved every dollar, and 4 grueling years later, I opened my own shop. It wasn't much to look at, but it was mine. The clients, they did come, but not at first, and not fast. Then there were rumors. There was this guy who could make your ho-hum motor into a monster. Car magazines did stories on me. Then racing teams called. A friend joined Hayes at the company, which in less than 3 years developed locations in 2 cities, contracts with big names. I'd obtained everything I had ever wanted. Everything but her. And then one evening, in the city, at the tech gala where I delivered the keynote address, she was there. "Eli?" I turned and I hardly even recognized her. Madeline. Still lovely, but not the radiant creature in the tabloids. Her eyes were weary and her smile was worn thin. She shuffled over to me in a green dress, and I knew immediately it was that dress she used to wear when we went to the lake. The angry, trespassing part of my heart was pounding in my chest alongside something else I didn't like to think about. "You look amazing," she murmured. "You too," I replied, but not in the same way, not in the way I meant. We talked like strangers pretending to be old friends. Then I doubled back and asked the question I didn't actually want the answer to. "How's Lucas?" Her smile faltered. We're done. He cheated. A lot. I was told by my parent to ignore it. I couldn't." I didn't say anything. I didn't owe her comfort. But the more she talked, the more my ice-cold wall loosened and cracked a bit. She was not the same girl who walked away from me. Some design had gone into her as a flawed woman who made choices and now had to live with them. 2 days she showed up at my store. She jammed her body into a coat 2 sizes too large, but gripped a cup of coffee like it was the last remaining warmth in her small, cold world. "I'm not here to beg for anything," she added quickly. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. Really sorry." "You just told me that," I muttered. "I know. But I didn't know what I was giving up at the time. I thought that love was tender, sweet. I think security is money, reputation. But it only put me in a golden cage. I missed you every day." We talked that night, and the next, and the one after. It started as a cautious friendship. I didn't let my guard down. I asked hard questions. She answered them all. We exchanged stories, and she recounted for me what went down with her parents when she left Lucas. How she'd lived in a small apartment, worked at an art store, become used to living without luxury. How she had kept a diary filled with letters to me, never sent. One day she gave me that journal. I read every page. I cried. I found someone who'd been broken by decisions she believed were right at the time. And I saw that someone who had never stopped loving me, though she buried it under 1,789 coats of arms and many millions of dollars. I had no clue what to do with all of that. So I said what I meant, that I still loved her. But I didn't know if I could rely on her. She didn't beg. She didn't make promises. "What I meant," she said, "is let me show you." And she did. I was able to benefit from local charity shows with her help. She supported my fledgling community programs, which introduced underprivileged children to an elementary level of automotive engineering. She showed up when I was ill. She listened when I vented. She didn't try to impress me. She wanted to be there, this time for real. After a year, we tried again, slowly, carefully. But when I reached for her hand again, I was home. Not because she was perfect, but because we both weren't. And this time, that was okay. Last fall, we cohabited. Her parents still won't speak to her, but she says she doesn't miss their voices. She missed mine. She just has this need to be near me and looks at me while I'm asleep, I say to him. When I ask her what she's doing, she just smiles and cups my face and whispers, "They said you'd never be enough. But you were too much all the time for them." There's no way of knowing from one second to the next what's going to occur. But this I do know. Love is not about money or connections. It's a matter of choosing each other, over and over, again and again when everything is unraveled. And this time, she chose me. And this time, I decided to let her. He didn't fit my image of a police detective at all. He wasn't big or imposing, and he sweated profusely. Every time I saw him, he had a bag of corn chips in his hand, which he ate one by one. He wasn't unfriendly or intimidating, but it was difficult to strike up a conversation with him. "Mr. Frum, we can't release you until tomorrow morning. There's no one here on Sunday evening who can process your paperwork." Samuel Green tried to be both professional and friendly. It didn't work. I'd been sitting in a cell for 3 days, and now he was telling me I had to stay another night. The whole thing was a confusing mess. I shouldn't have been there in the first place. They probably really wanted someone to charge with murder. Unfortunately, I didn't fit the bill. All I could do was stare at him across the table and shrug. Hell, I didn't want to leave anyway. I was disappointed when they told me I wasn't going to be charged. Those bastards were sending me home, back to my wife and family. Back. No bail, no return. I felt like an old soda bottle. The good news is that you can order dinner at Stakeout tonight. The money will come out of a different fund. You can order whatever you want. I smiled weakly at him. Sam, will you be here in the morning? Sure. Why? Well, I was hoping you could help me a little with this release. What do you mean? Well, I'll be completely free, right? Yes, no strings attached. Is there any way you could let me go without turning me into my family? When Sam Green laughed, beads of sweat rolled down his forehead. You mean you want to escape through the back door? I nodded, and he shook his head. She really hurt you, didn't she? I nodded again. Here's what I'll do, John. You decide what you want, and I'll find a way to help you get it. Deal? That evening, I ate chicken and was the envy of all the other guests. After I finished my apple pie, I spent the rest of the evening going over everything that had happened and trying to plan my future. Going over the events seemed like a good idea, but I had no idea what my plans would be. I worked at the Northeast Regional Distribution Center for Ace Hardware. All day long, I loaded and unloaded trucks. The work wasn't difficult, but I liked it, and the pay was decent. With that money, I fed my family and raised two wonderful boys. Todd was 16 and Jeremy was a year younger. My marriage and life were wonderful until 3 days ago when I was arrested. The arrest went fairly smoothly and without complications, but when I learned the circumstances of the arrest, things got more complicated. In fact, I complicated things myself. However, at the time, I had no such intention. I was in the warehouse doing my usual work at the usual time when the police arrived. My boss pointed me out, and I was immediately handcuffed and led to a black and white car. All this happened in front of my colleagues. By the time I reached the patrol car, everyone in the building knew what was going on. Of course, I had no idea. Being a law-abiding citizen, I followed orders like a little puppy and didn't ask any questions. That was when I first met Sam Green. At first, he was a little stern, but overall, he was serious. By the end of the day, his behavior began to change. We went through a few minutes of formal questioning before things got interesting. Sam Green was very interested in where I had been all morning. He didn't look too happy when I assured him that 15 people could confirm that I hadn't left the warehouse. I tried to be polite and cooperative until he dropped a bombshell on me. Do you know a man named Thomas Esterly? He's not a friend, but I know him. Why? He was killed this morning at 11 o'clock in the parking lot of the Holiday Inn. His car exploded. Why am I being questioned about what happened to Thomas Esterly? I haven't seen that man in over 15 years. What was your relationship with Mr. Esterly? None. He was an old friend of my wife's before I met her. I met him a few times, but never in an informal setting. What was the relationship between Mr. Esterly and your wife? Detective Green, you're starting to annoy me. Laura and Tom Esterly were a couple for several years. I met her about 6 months after they broke up. I never asked her about her relationship with him. I suggest you talk to her. We've already talked to her, Mr. Fromat. We spoke to her for 2 hours today. Why? Your wife was with Mr. Esterly shortly before he was murdered. She was at the scene of the crime when we arrived. Suddenly, I didn't like the turn the conversation was taking. I had a good marriage. My life was perfect. Laura never gave me any reason to think otherwise. Of course, it could have been my fault because I wasn't looking for anything. It was because I never suspected anything. Tick-tock, tick-tock. My brain finally kicked in, and I didn't like the conclusions I came to. When I didn't answer, he spoke again. Security cameras at the Holiday Inn recorded Mr. Esterly and your wife entering room 311 at 9:45 and leaving at 12:30. Your wife returned to her car, and Mr. Esterly returned to his. When Mr. Esterly tried to start his Mercedes, it exploded. Your wife was far enough away not to be hurt. Can I have a cup of coffee? He seemed a little annoyed by my request. I had broken his concentration. I needed a short break to clear my head. I had just learned that my wife, with whom I had lived for 18 years, had been cheating on me. My whole life had been built around her and the children I had with her. Everything was falling apart. No, I hadn't killed Thomas Esterly, but I would very much like to have done so. The rest of his questions would have been superfluous. Sam Green left the room for a moment and returned with cups of black coffee from the vending machine. The coffee was terrible, but I needed time to think, so I sipped it slowly. Detective Green, I assume my wife confirmed all this information, or did she have some other explanation? No, Mr. Fromut. There is no other explanation. We showed her the evidence and she confirmed everything. She had been seeing Mr. Esterly, and they did spend more than 2 hours together in room 311. I know this isn't your job, but was this their first meeting or had they been together before? Mrs. Fromut indicated that she and Mr. Esterly had been meeting monthly for at least 3 years. She had no idea who would want Mr. Esterly dead. Of course, you understand why you are our prime suspect? I finished my coffee in one gulp. My body seemed to tremble from its bitterness. At that moment, it matched my mood. Why did she admit all this? To be honest, I think she was scared to death. It seems they usually came in the same car. Today she had some shopping to do, so she decided to meet him there. If they had done what they usually did, your wife would be dead too. I think she knew that. Well, I guess I'd better tell you everything so you can close this case. What do you mean? It was me. I parked my truck behind the warehouse and got out so no one would see me. I put the bomb under Esterly's car, then went back to work. I was gone for at least 30 minutes, so no one even noticed I was gone. Are you willing to sign a statement confirming this? Of course. An hour later, I found myself in a solitary cell. Most of the other inmates had to share cells, but murderers were given rooms to themselves. So why did I do something so stupid? It was very simple. I was a quiet guy, but I was proud. It was important to me what I thought of myself. Of course, that meant it was also important to me what others thought of me. This situation changed everything in an instant. Now it was obvious to me that my wife didn't respect me very much. I believed Detective Green when he said that Laura had been on Thomas Esterly's side for 3 years. Not because I had any information, but simply because she would never make something like that up, and neither would he. Not only did I not want to live with her anymore, I didn't even want to see her. I was sure she would have a logical explanation for everything, but I didn't want to hear it. The best way to avoid her was to go to prison. I had always had an excellent relationship with my 2 sons. I had never done anything that would disgrace them or make them feel that I was a bad father. At that moment, I didn't feel like a good father. I was a cuckold. My wife, their mother, had openly admitted that she had slept with another man. That information would inevitably reach them. I realized that after this, I would not be able to look at my sons and hold my head high. She humiliated me in front of my boys. She stripped me of my masculinity in front of my children. How could I look them in the eye without feeling like I had let them down? The best way out of the situation was to tell the whole world that when I found out what was going on, I took steps to put an end to it. I killed the son of a bitch who destroyed my marriage. That way, my sons could at least be proud of how their father handled the situation. In fact, I would have liked to do that. But better this way than nothing if I at least get credit for it. In any case, I didn't want to see my sons the way I saw my wife. I couldn't go back to work. I played cards and bowled with all those guys. If they found out that my wife had been cheating on me for 3 years, I would never have been able to live with myself. The shame I would have had to bear would have been unbearable. That's why I couldn't go back to Ace Hardware. The situation with my family would have remained the same. I didn't want to face any of them. I couldn't find an explanation for Laura's actions that didn't make me look weak. My only hope was to go to prison and forget about all of them. The plan was to avoid trial by agreeing to a plea bargain. In movies and on TV, they always offer a deal to save on the costs and hassle of a trial. Now all I had to do was wait for the charges to be filed. I didn't care what happened to me, but I didn't want to stand in front of a bunch of people I knew and look like a cuckolded loser. One of the best things about being in jail was that I could turn down visitors. They kind of made me talk to my public defender, but I refused to see my wife and my brother Will. Other than my lawyer, I spent most of Friday alone. I was given a newspaper, and it had all the details of Thomas Esterly's death. I was named as the alleged killer, and Laura was clearly identified as a prostitute from the Holiday Inn. My sons must be very proud of me. It seems that Esterly had made a small fortune in real estate and married well. Sam Green came in after dinner. "John, I have one quick question, and then I'll let you go. Where did you get the black powder you used to make the bomb?" "There was a gun show at the Lancaster Fair this summer. I bought 2 cans there, but I didn't keep the receipts." As soon as I answered, I knew something was wrong. He came out of the room with a big smile on his face. "I'm not sure, but I thought he winked at me. I thought my answer was pretty good because the boys and I had actually been to that gun show. Saturday started slowly. After lunch, 2 guys from the Washington Department of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms showed up. I didn't like them, and I refused to talk to them without a lawyer present. It was a holiday, and they couldn't find my public defender anywhere. They left after a few hours, but they didn't seem too upset. The rest of the day passed without incident, except for a very brief visit from Sam Green. He just stopped by to ask if I was okay. I nodded, he smiled again, and left. On Sunday afternoon, Sam returned, and we spent a few pleasant hours together. And then it all came crashing down. "John, it took us a few days, but we finally put all the pieces of the puzzle together. I didn't like how you tried to mislead us, but I understand why you did it." I sat silently, waiting for him to say something else. "The guys at the ATF were able to find out everything about the bomb that killed Thomas Esterly. They even identified the man who probably made the bomb, and they were right. It was C4, John, not black powder. Last night, they arrested a professional bomber who made the bomb. His name is Frank Donato, and he was arrested in Philadelphia. Phone records show that over the past few weeks, he contacted Sylvia Esterly, Tom's wife, 13 times. Last Wednesday, Sylvia Estelle withdrew $25,000 from her bank account. She refused to say what she spent the money on. Well, that pretty much buried my plan." I sat and listened for the next hour as Sam Green recounted everything that had happened. Laura would have been collateral damage. Sylvia Estelle would have been just as happy if Laura had been in the car with her husband. And then it was over. I waited for Monday to be sent back. No bail, no return. That damn phrase echoed in my head like an Amy Winehouse song. A prison sentence would have left me with a shred of dignity. Now I had nothing. I was being released to a fickle wife, 2 sons who I was sure had lost all respect for me, and a job I was ashamed to return to. I couldn't look my family and friends in the eye anymore. The saddest part was that I had nothing to do with it. I was a victim. No bail, no return. What did that even mean? Sam was a man of his word. As I was checking out, I saw Laura, Todd, and Jeremy in the lobby. Sam took me aside, and we went out through the garage entrance. He waited for the banks to open so I could withdraw some cash. I left everything I had in my account but took the $22,000 we had been saving for a new house. My new detective friend drove me to Ace Warehouse so I could pick up my truck. Sam and I shook hands. I had my truck and a few dollars. I decided there was nothing left in the house I couldn't live without. He went back to my wife and kids, and I headed south on the highway. My first stop was Knoxville. After a good dinner and a cold beer, I turned on my cell phone. I had 13 messages from Laura, which I deleted, and then I called Todd. "Dad, is that you? Where the hell are you?" "I'm fine. Are you alone? Can you talk?" "Yes, Mom's in the bedroom. She's been there all day. Jeremy's here with me." "I'm sorry, son. But after what happened, I just couldn't bring myself to go home. I feel terrible leaving you, But you're both grown-ups, and I think you can handle it. We're fine, Dad. Mom's in a terrible state, but no one, including us, is showing her much sympathy. You'll have to take care of yourselves for a couple of years. I'll send you money as soon as I can. We talked for a few more minutes. Things with my sons weren't as bad as I had thought. They seemed to be on my side, even though I had left. That night, I slept better than I had expected. By noon the next day, I was in Huntsville. I rented a small mobile home, and the next day got a job at a warehouse through a temp agency. By the end of the following week, I was offered a permanent position. I was overqualified and underpaid, but the job seemed stable, and the prospects for the future were good. I started making arrangements to send money home to the boys. Everything came to a halt when Todd called. Todd and Jeremy had left home and were now living with my parents. Jeremy and Laura had gotten into a fight, and Jeremy ended up getting slapped several times by his mother. He defended himself but didn't hit her back. Todd very carefully explained that Laura wasn't to blame. Laura tried to convince the boys that her actions were somehow justified. Todd tried his best to hold back his anger, but Jeremy exploded. It seemed like he unleashed every curse word I had ever wanted to say on his mother. Finally, he got to the point where Laura couldn't take it anymore. In a fit of rage, Laura yelled that they should leave with their weak-willed father. The next morning, Todd and Jeremy left. 2 days later, my father arrived in Huntsville with my 2 sons. I had no problem trading my small rental house for a more spacious one. My father stayed for a couple of days and then went home. Todd was smart enough to take their school records with him before he left, so there were no problems enrolling them in the local school. The biggest challenge was deciding what kind of car to buy. I think Todd won because Jeremy didn't have his license yet. We never heard from Laura again. She didn't contact my parents either. Over the next year, I got 2 raises. We moved out of the trailer and into a small rented house. Todd had a girlfriend and a part-time job. Jeremy got his license and bought a car, which sat on jack stands in the yard. We shared the household chores, but cooking was my job. I was at work when I received the divorce papers. I never got an explanation or an apology. I didn't need one. I would love to tell you what happened to Laura, but I can't. She disappeared from my life, and I have no intention of bringing her back. I'm sure she's sitting somewhere in a comfortable armchair or on a bar stool, glad to be rid of me. That thought alone makes me smile. I'm sorry, Laura. You lost. No deposit, no refund. I think my biggest problem has always been my appearance. I'm not the kind of man women dream of when they imagine their knight in shining armor. I'm very overweight. I'm 190 centimeters tall and weigh almost 136 kilograms. Fortunately, I have almost no body fat. I have a thick nose which is accentuated by deep-set, narrow eyes. I have all my teeth and all my hair, but that doesn't improve my overall appearance. I work hard as a heavy equipment operator, so I keep my sand-colored hair cut short. That way it's easier to keep clean and out of my eyes. Despite all my flaws, I considered myself lucky to have found a woman I married and spent my whole life with. Loretta wasn't an ugly girl, but she wasn't a beauty either. In my opinion, she didn't have a single flaw. Of course, she was petite compared to me, only 5 feet 2 inches tall. She put up with my rudeness and always joked about it, but in a good way. When she teased me, I never felt insulted or humiliated. I liked that I could feel comfortable around her. We married young and had a son, Brian, who is now 16, and a daughter, Monica, who is a year younger. Fortunately, the children took after their mother more than they did me. Both were smart and well-behaved. I was a proud father and a contented and happy husband. I worked for my Uncle Sal as a heavy equipment operator. It was more or less a family business, but Uncle Sal was the boss. We all got paid and worked as much as we could. At the end of the year, any profits that weren't used to buy new equipment were divided among the family members. It was a good arrangement. Loretta got a job at a small company that appraised real estate for banks and investment companies. She didn't actually do the appraising, but did all the typing, filing, and data entry. Life was good, and I should have left things as they were. It was a small thing that made me think. I happened to notice something that looked like a hickey on my wife's neck. Normally, I would have teased her about it, but for some reason I didn't. If it was a hickey, I definitely didn't give it to her. It could have been an insect bite or an ingrown hair. She made me even more worried by trying to cover it up with makeup when we were at home. I could understand why she would want to hide it if she was going out, but why would she do that at home? If Loretta was seeing someone else, she was doing it during the day. She never went out at night when I wasn't home. I was sure she wasn't seeing anyone in the house. It tormented me for a whole week. Of course, by then the hickey was gone, but the memory of it remained. Our sex life was fine. Maybe I wasn't as romantic as I should have been, but I always bought her flowers for no reason and never forgot her birthday or our anniversary. We went out to restaurants regularly and, when we could, went to plays or movies. Every year we went on a family vacation to some special place. I valued her as a wife and as a companion in life. Now I was going crazy with doubts because of a stupid red mark on her neck. Work wasn't very busy, so Uncle Sal gave me a few days off without any problems. I had no idea what I was looking for or what I was going to do. I decided to just follow her and see what happened. I borrowed a car from a coworker and bought a crossword puzzle book. Nothing happened for 2 days. I followed her to work, to lunch, and home. I was starting to feel like a fool, but on the 3rd day, everything changed. Loretta left the office for lunch a little earlier than usual. She didn't go to her car, but walked around the side of the building. A white 4-door company car pulled up behind her, and Loretta got into the passenger seat. Okay, she's going to lunch with someone from work. It was a little different from the previous 2 days, but not that unusual. I had no trouble following them, and then my worst fear came true. The white car pulled into the parking lot of one of the small, shabby motels near the highway exit. I recognized one of the men. He was one of the appraisers Loretta worked with, Tom something or other. He already had a key. They entered the room as if they had done it 100 times before. He was a nice-looking guy, about 10 years younger than Loretta. They drew the curtains and closed the blinds. Unfortunately, I hadn't thought of that ahead of time. I didn't know what to do next. Probably the smartest thing would have been to wait until Loretta came home in the evening and talk to her then. But my emotions got the better of me. I got out of the car and walked up to the motel door. It was an old motel, and the door with its jambs was made of wood. Even if there had been a lock, the screws could have been pulled out of the jamb with a strong push. It had been about 10 minutes since they had entered the room. I stopped one of the maids and asked her to call 911. She looked at me strangely and immediately grabbed the phone. I decided to wait another 5 minutes before breaking down the door. My patience only lasted 2. I slammed the door with my right shoulder. Not only did the lock pop out, but the hinges were torn out of the wall. The door fell to the floor with a crash, startling Loretta and her lover. They were naked in bed, and I grabbed him by the neck, not even letting him get up. Seeing my wife having sex with another man was unbearable for me. It was his fault because he knew she was married. It was also her fault for the same reason. My rage broke free. My wife had never seen me like this before. Tom, as he was called, didn't recover from the first 2 blows, which broke several of his ribs. After that, he couldn't move or breathe. I took my time and methodically beat every part of his face and body until it was bloody, bruised, and broken. Loretta screamed for me to stop and at one point tried to grab me. My elbow hit her in the mouth when I swung away. She flew across the room, blood spurting from her broken lip. Then everything went black. When I came to, I was handcuffed in the back seat of a police car. Paramedics were carrying Tom out on a stretcher, and Loretta was standing by the ambulance, her lip being treated and her body wrapped in a motel sheet. She looked at the police car, imagined me in it, and burst into tears. A female police officer led her back to the room, and the police car drove away from the motel parking lot. I didn't contest the charges or ask for a lawyer or a trial. Justice was swift. Since I had asked the maid to call 911 before breaking down the door, they called it premeditated. It didn't matter to me. I got 2 years in prison. My brother Louis was the only one who saw me before I left for state prison. He promised to visit me when things settled down a bit. I had no problems in my new home, especially after word got out about why I was there. 10 days passed before Louis showed up. "John, I wanted to bring you cigarettes, but then I remembered you don't smoke." He diffused the tension with his joke. "Cut the crap, Louis. What's going on at home? No one has told me anything, and all I hear here are rumors and nonsense. Things are as bad as they can be. The kids and the family are in despair, and Loretta has been hiding in the house ever since. Brian and Monica are staying with Mom and Dad, but they plan to come home at the end of the week. I don't know anything about Loretta because she won't talk to anyone. Her sister Joyce came by, but Loretta wouldn't let her in." "Does Loretta talk to the children?" "Number. They've tried several times, but she refuses to talk to them. I don't think she'll ever tell anyone what really happened." "I take it she's not going to work?" "Hell, she doesn't even leave the house. She's going to run out of food soon." "Who's paying the bills?" "I don't know. I'll ask Brian to see what he can come up with this week. Monica is determined to get back in the house, one way or another." "What about that guy?" "His name is Tom Bostick. He's still in the hospital, probably another couple of weeks." "What the hell? I only beat him up a little. Why is he still in that damn hospital?" "You beat him pretty badly, John. Besides broken ribs and a broken collarbone, he has a lot of internal damage. I couldn't get all the details, but it seems to be related to his kidneys and spleen. His genitals were also injured. He has to eat through a tube, and there's something wrong with one of his eyes." "I guess I lost my temper." "It sure looks like it." "I think I need to talk to the kids. Will you bring them with you next time you come?" "Why not?" After Louis left, I made a list of things I thought needed to be done around the house. Of course, it was all based on what Louis had told me about Loretta's behavior. I felt a certain responsibility to keep the house running smoothly, at least until the kids finished school. 5 days later, Brian and Monica showed up. Louis wasn't with them. "Where's your uncle?" "He had to go to work. I took Mom's car from the office, and we decided to come here ourselves." Brian seemed proud of himself. "What was she doing at the office?" "She's been there since the day you were arrested. Mom never picked her up. She hasn't driven or even left the house since." "Is she okay?" Monica shook her head and looked up. Number. "She doesn't talk, she just wanders around the house. She doesn't answer questions or pick up the phone. The answering machine is full. I tried to answer all the calls, but only from relatives. Even journalists have been calling." "Will you be okay there, or do you want to stay with your grandparents?" "I think we'll be fine, Dad. We just need to get into some kind of routine." Brian sounded confident, and I was glad my kids were taking control of the situation. We spent the next hour discussing what they could do and how I could help them. I was still getting paid, so I offered to set up automatic payments for all the utility bills. I told Monica to take her mother's bank card so they could withdraw cash for other expenses. The card also worked as a debit card, which would make some other expenses easier. Brian would take care of the housework and cars as well as help Monica with cleaning and cooking. It seemed that Loretta was still able to take care of herself, but had simply lost all desire to interact with people. Monica said that Loretta had become a little obsessive about cleaning and the general appearance of the house. She was constantly dusting and rearranging things for no reason. I couldn't figure out if this was a good thing or a bad thing. Before they left, I asked Monica to tell her mother that I wanted to talk to her about what had happened. Monica didn't think Loretta would want to do that, but she promised to try. Loretta never came to see me in prison. She didn't call or even write. Monica and Brian tried to call her, but to no avail, and even enlisted the help of Loretta's sister, Joyce. 6 months passed. Things calmed down, but I still hadn't received any explanation from my wife. Brian, Monica, and Louie visited me regularly, and a few guys from work took time off to come and taunt me. After that, things got a little more interesting. 2 weeks after Tom Bostic was injured, his wife filed for divorce. He had no grounds for doing so. Now he had 2 children to support, plus alimony and house payments. When Tom was discharged from the hospital, he was transferred to a rehabilitation center. His expenses began to exceed his insurance coverage, so he decided to sue me. It was all very complicated, and I didn't understand anything. Uncle Sal came to my rescue. Within a week, the company's lawyer filed counterclaims against Bostic for alienating the family, as well as against the company where Bostic and Loretta worked. The lawyer was slick and loud. Suddenly, all the claims on both sides disappeared. I didn't get anything, but I didn't have to pay anything either. 3 months later, the situation at home had not changed. Brian finished school and enlisted in the Air Force. He was due to leave in a month. Since Monica now had a driver's license, they didn't think his departure would cause any problems. Loretta still wouldn't answer the phone or leave the house. She wasn't causing Monica any trouble, but the situation couldn't go on like that. Loretta started refusing to let Monica talk to me or see me whenever Monica tried. After Brian left, Monica started coming to see me on her own. Sometimes she brought Louis with her. One day, Loretta's sister, Joyce, came to see me, and I never understood why. It had been almost a year since I began serving my sentence. My wife had become a recluse and refused to see or talk to me or anyone else. I spent many hours thinking about the situation. Loretta never apologized to me. She never asked for my forgiveness. She never explained why she had an affair. She never offered any options for how we could resolve or fix what had gone wrong. She never acknowledged that anything had gone wrong. It was as if I was nothing. I felt small and insignificant. The fact that she didn't acknowledge my feelings about the situation told me that she didn't think I was worthy of her attention or time. I felt like an insect on her windshield or a piece of dog poop on the sole of her shoe. Once the problem with John was solved, she wouldn't have to worry about it anymore. I spent hours thinking about things like that. I felt anger building up inside me. Tom Bostic had left rehab and was living in a one-room apartment near his job. Louis told me he was limping and seemed to have a tick in his right eye. I felt a little sorry for the guy until Monica told me the disturbing news. Loretta was taking a shower when Monica needed some Midol. She rummaged through her mother's purse and found a prepaid cell phone hidden inside. There was only one number stored in the phone. Monica wrote down the phone number and the number that was in the directory. It was disturbing news. Of course, given how things were going, there was no way I was going to get back together with Loretta. However, the thought that she might still be in touch with Bostic made me furious. 2 weeks later, they announced that 127 of us would be released early. My name was on the list. I had no problems in prison. I had a job waiting for me on the outside, and I was a first-time offender. What more could I want? Louis and Monica came to pick me up. I decided to stay with my parents for a while, until Loretta got used to me being around. It was an unnecessary precaution. Loretta left. It was the first time she had left the house in a year. She didn't tell anyone anything and didn't leave a note. A quick check showed that she had taken most of her clothes and several suitcases with her. I avoided meeting my wife so as not to talk to her about her infidelity. Or rather, she avoided me. I was looking forward to her explanation. Of course, if she still refused to talk after my return, I wouldn't find out anything. I also learned that Tom Bostic had quit his job that week. Interesting. Instead of staying with my parents, I returned to Monica's house. She seemed relieved that I was back, especially now that she had a steady boyfriend. Of course, that also meant that I spent my nights at home alone. I never thought I would miss my cellmates. Any company was better than none. A week later, I went back to work. It was as if I had never left. I felt obligated to Uncle Sal and his family to work overtime. No one refused me. For some reason, over the past year, I had lost my taste for beer. I know it sounds strange, but it no longer quenched my thirst like it used to. I had never been interested in hard liquor, so I started drinking a lot of cola and iced tea. People teased me a little, but I was immune to peer pressure. It started badly one night when I was thinking about Loretta and Tom Bostic. They made a fool of me. I didn't even know Bostic, but I didn't deserve that kind of treatment from my wife. I never treated her badly. I never insulted her, either physically or verbally. I was always respectful and loving. I didn't do anything to make her hate me. Of course, I had a feeling that she didn't really hate me. She just didn't have any feelings for me. She just threw me away like an old shoe without a second thought. It was humiliating. Marcy tried to help as best she could, but there wasn't much she could do. I was glad she found a companion, especially after all the problems she had last year taking care of her mother. I wanted to give her all the time she needed to catch up. I also tried not to show my depression at home or at work. The more time I spent at work, the less I thought about Loretta. When I got home, I was usually tired and slept well. Usually. It was Sunday afternoon when I decided to visit Joyce. Joyce was Loretta's younger sister. She was divorced and had 2 children in elementary school. I always appreciated that she came to visit me when I was in prison, although I never understood why. Sometimes I thought that if I had been a little friendlier when she came, she might have come again. "John, it's good to see you. I heard you're home again. Come on in. Would you like some coffee or beer?" I followed my sister-in-law into the kitchen. "Coffee would be great." "I think I know why you're here. I don't know much, but I'll help any way I can." "The most important question you probably can't help me with is why." Joyce set 2 hot cups on the table and sat down across from me. "You're right, John. I can't help you. I've asked her several times in different ways, but she always either ignored me or changed the subject. I thought she wasn't talking to you. She didn't even want to see me until last week. And then suddenly she wanted to talk." There was a pause. Joyce seemed ready to answer my questions, but she wasn't in a hurry to share anything personal. "Joyce, why did you come to Graterford?" "I don't know. I felt like Loretta had set you up somehow, and you didn't deserve that. You didn't look very happy to see me, so I didn't come back." "I'm sorry. I was still hurting. I didn't understand why you came, and I didn't know how to react. I guess I was being too sensitive. Except for what I read in the papers, I still don't know what happened." Joyce sighed softly. I put down my coffee and laughed a little. "It's simple. She cheated on me, I caught them, and I beat the guy up. End of story. Except that you spent a year in prison. I prefer to think of it as a vacation. It was better than one of those damn cruises. We both tried to find something funny in the situation, but to no avail." "Why are you here, John?" "Where is she?" I tried to phrase the question simply to get a straight answer. "In Reno." Damn. It worked. I asked the question and got the answer. "Loretta came to me to talk about my divorce. I couldn't help her because I didn't know what to say." "Why?" "She wants a divorce so she can be free of you and not see you or talk to you. I told her that wasn't possible here. She seemed a little upset. She didn't want to move to Nevada because of the residency requirements, but she decided it was her only option. The company she worked for had a branch in Reno. The guy she was with, Tom or something like that, was able to get a job there. She intends to file for divorce once she's been there long enough." It all made sense. I didn't like it, but it was logical. I don't understand why she didn't do it while I was in prison. She could have sent me the papers, and I would have gladly signed them and sent them back. She waited too long and set herself up. "What did I do, Joyce?" I asked my sister about it when she was leaving. She just smiled and walked out without answering. She probably decided I wasn't good enough. I wish she had told me before we got married. "Then you wouldn't have Brian and Marcy." I forced a smile. "John, my husband was handsome, but he was a bastard. That's a bad reason to get married. I won't make that mistake again." "I guess I'll have to find a divorcee who had a handsome husband. Maybe I'll get lucky next time." It was stupid. and I realized it only after the words had left my lips. Embarrassed, I got up and thanked Joyce for the coffee and the conversation. I think I knew why she had come to Graterford to see me. Not only am I ugly, but I also seem to be a bit dim. When I left, she looked a little embarrassed, and I felt awkward. I booked a week-long Caribbean cruise and gave the ticket to Louis. Louis wasn't married, and I knew he'd appreciate the trip, especially at my expense. In return, I borrowed his car. The less he knew, the better. It took me 3 days to drive to Reno. I found an empty, abandoned house east of Sparks that had been foreclosed on, and I easily arranged for Tom Bostick to come and appraise it. He arrived at the house with his trusty notebook and tape measure. 30 minutes later, he was in the trunk of Uncle Louie's car, heading east. I drove about 30 miles from Winnemucca before I found a turn that seemed right. I don't know where that dirt road led, but I only drove the first mile. Tom was still breathing when I put him in the trunk, but he had decided to stop in the last few hours. It was a shame because I wanted to talk to him a little longer. I found a small ravine with lots of rocks and rough vegetation. I took his watch, wallet, and cell phone, then threw the body into the ravine. Someone might find him, but not before the coyotes and other animals got to him. I continued eastward, feeling a little less humiliated. I never considered myself a vengeful person, but apparently, I was. I stopped at a casino in Elko and left Tom's wallet in the men's restroom. I was sure someone would find it and use the credit cards. No one would report the wallet missing, which meant no one would report the credit cards missing. There was nothing special about the watch, so I just threw it in the trash. I had just crossed the Utah state line and decided to call Joyce when I got home. Maybe nothing would come of it, but at least I could have dinner with her at a restaurant. I was starting to feel better when my cell phone rang. The display showed the number Marcy had given me. It looked like I would be able to talk to my wife after all. "Tom, where the hell are you? Tom, are you there? Answer me." My hoarse voice was as recognizable as my disgusting appearance. I couldn't hide it. "Sorry, wrong number." I listened just long enough to hear my wife exclaim, "Oh my God, no!" I threw the cell phone out the car window. In a few days, I'd be home. I hoped Louis was enjoying my vacation. Karen cheated on her husband, Danny. She loved him, but she felt old and wanted to make sure that men still found her attractive. Bradley Martin gave Karen the attention she wanted, and she rewarded him with sex. Just sex, no love. How did Karen get caught, you ask? It was a traffic violation. A camera caught her speeding and photographed Karen's head on Bradley's lap. Danny got the ticket, saw the photo, and that was the end of their marriage. At first, my daughter Debbie was candid. "Mom, he's depressed." Karen cried when she told me that he didn't leave the house except to go to work. After a while, Debbie stopped telling her mother about her father. "You're not married anymore," she told me. "He doesn't ask me about you, so I shouldn't intrude on his personal life by telling you about him. Mom, you missed your chance to be in his life when you did that." Karen asked how Danny was doing. She hoped Danny would give her another chance. That was her wish. One day, Karen received some encouraging news from my daughter. "Mom, I wish we could all get together sometimes. I'm so tired of my kids only being able to visit one set of grandparents. It would be so much easier to decide who to visit and when if we all acted like adults." Karen began to realize that Debbie and her family were spending more time with Danny than she was. Karen hardly ever saw Debbie, her husband, or her grandchildren, but Danny seemed to see them often. Karen finally got what she had been dreaming of for 3 years while they were apart. "Mom, do you want to spend the weekend at Dad's lake house?" Karen had always loved that place. "Do you think he'll mind if we go there?" Karen asked my daughter. Mom, he'll be there, And he knows we asked you to come with us. Karen sank to her knees and began to cry. He wanted to see me. Mom, calm down. Selena and I decided it was time to reunite the family, she said. Who the hell is Selena? Karen wanted to say, but all that came out was, Selena who? Selena from Dad, Karen's daughter replied. You'll like her. How could I like her? Karen thought. Karen's revenge. As Debbie and I drove home after our disastrous visit to Danny's new family, I couldn't believe how she was talking to me. This is all my fault, Mom. You have no right to be upset. You cheated on Dad, remember? So you think it's okay to take me there and bam! Just throw it in my face that Danny is married and has 2 adopted children, and my grandchildren call her Grandma? Well, Mom, what did you think they were going to call her? Well, not Grandma. I'm their grandmother. And you think it's okay for them to call me Old Grandma for God's sake? They looked so cozy, my daughter, her husband, and my grandchildren, surrounded by Danny's new family, whom I knew nothing about, and they thought I should just accept it. And the house on the lake. When we bought it, it was just a little cottage on the lake. We used it once or twice a year, and it had hardly any furniture. I loved that little cottage on the lake. But now it's been renovated and it's huge and beautiful. Danny never thought about anything like that when we were married. I spent 3 years of my life hoping that I had a chance to get back together with my ex-husband. And my daughter, she caught me off guard when she brought me to meet Danny. Surprise! It's just disrespectful. I didn't do anything to deserve this. My daughter and grandchildren are spending their vacation with Danny's new family instead of with me. And why didn't my daughter tell me that Danny was married so that I could move on too? It's not like I have a busy life. Between my divorce and the meager alimony I get from Danny, I'm barely making ends meet. You'd think my daughter would be there for me when I need her. No, and the only reason she brought me to Danny's house on the lake was because she was tired of the inconvenience. It would be so much easier to choose who to visit and when if we all acted like adults. To hell with her, her husband Danny, and his wife Selena. We sat in silence for most of the drive home. Debbie chatted, but I didn't care what she said. Everything was wrong, and it was all my fault. She tried to say goodbye, but I just slammed the car door and walked away. That night, I slept better than I expected. Yes, I fell asleep in tears, but that was the last time I cried over my failed marriage. No more self-pity. I made myself a delicious breakfast and a cup of coffee. After breakfast, I took a shower, got dressed, left the house, and went to the gym. It was time to get my chest and butt in shape and get back on the market. I worked out with a trainer who showed me all the machines. I told him what I wanted to achieve, and we made a workout plan for me. I spent the rest of Sunday walking around my apartment and throwing out junk food, but not the peanut M&Ms. A girl needs chocolate. Then I went shopping. I bought healthy food, yogurt, salad, fish, and other healthy foods. When I put everything away, I made myself something to eat. I scolded myself for throwing out all the junk food, but I knew it would be worth it in the end. Then I sat down to the stack of files I had saved. It's a good thing I don't throw anything away. Did my daughter call to see how I was doing? No, but I wasn't expecting her to, and I wouldn't have answered anyway. Monday came quickly. I went straight to Brad's office. Brad. Hi, Karen. How's Danny? Bad. He got married and has 2 adopted children. He got married and has kids? What? Brad was as confused as I was. Yes, I'm done with Danny, my daughter, and her husband. They can all go to hell. And Brad, I want revenge on Danny and I'm going to sue John. Karen, calm down. What's going on? Brad, sleeping with you was a mistake. I don't hold it against you, but I never thought I'd lose Danny. I never thought I'd get caught. If I had been caught, I thought Danny's love for me would be enough for him to forgive me. I loved Danny so much and wanted him to take me back. Brad, I just agreed to everything in the divorce settlement. I didn't listen to my lawyer and didn't answer half his questions. Karen, Calm down and explain what you mean. Once the agreement is signed, it's final. Brad, Danny, and I bought a small cottage by the lake when we were married. We only went there once or twice a year. When Danny left me, he lived there and I lived in our house, waiting for it to be sold. After the divorce, we sold the house and split the money 50-50. But Danny continued to live in the lake house. It was never included in the list of assets to be sold. I didn't bring it up because I just wanted Danny back. Now that little lake house looks beautiful and is worth a fortune. Karen, are you sure it wasn't on the property list and you didn't give it to Danny? Number. Here are all the documents. Danny wanted me to suffer, I'm sure of it. And it wasn't just Danny. I was being cheated at work, and in more ways than one. As soon as the divorce was finalized, I was sent to the stenography department. It was my punishment, but John, that bastard, set me up. Karen, we both know that John was a jerk and only cared about himself and his firm. Calm down and tell me what you're talking about. My alimony, Brad. My alimony was pennies because John, that jerk, demoted me to stenographer after the court set the alimony based on my higher salary as a paralegal. I could barely pay my rent. Thank God you found me a job here and got me away from John. I always wondered why Danny never sued John. He broke our non-hostility agreement and everyone knew about us. Now Brad understood. Or at least John didn't make him enforce it, Brad said. I think John convinced Danny that he would take care of us. Danny beat me and John fired me. You were demoted, your salary was cut, your pension was cut, and your alimony was reduced to pennies. Brad called his promising, successful, and twisted lawyer to join us at Brad's office. Scott, I need you to work with Karen, I interrupted him. And stop staring at my blouse, you little pervert. As I was saying, Brad continued, I need you to listen to Karen's story and come back to me with ideas on how we can... I interrupted Brad. Get my ex-husband and sue that bastard John. That little pervert Scott turned out to be a surprisingly good lawyer. We spent time together and he convinced me not to quit the gym. Of course he did. The little pervert loved my body. It seemed that this MILF hadn't lost her appeal yet. No, I didn't sleep with him, at least not yet. I had learned my lesson, and that was enough. I also didn't sleep with Brad. If I even hugged Brad, his ex would have him fire me. Brad's life was even more miserable than mine. She would never take Brad back. But Brad couldn't accept that. He continued to do everything she asked. I no longer sat at home every weekend, but I didn't have a serious boyfriend yet. I went out to dinner, danced, went to concerts, and had sex. My life was good and could only get better. It had been about 6 months since I met Danny's new family. I had talked to Debbie twice. Each time I hung up. You need to start acting like an adult, she told me. To hell with her. It had been about 6 months since I met Danny's new family. I had spoken to Debbie twice. Each time I hung up. You need to start acting like an adult, she told me. Forget about her. The big day had arrived. John was downstairs, and I was going to get my revenge. Hello, John, Brad said. I just looked at John, but didn't say anything. Brad, why am I here? I was told it was important, John asked. John, would you like my secretary to bring you a bottle of water, a cup of coffee, or maybe something stronger? Brad asked. What's going on, Brad? Scott, tell John why he's here. Scott was young, but looked confident as he looked at John. John, this is your only chance to make amends to Karen for the damage she's suffered, or we're sending this letter. He handed it across the table to John. To the Bar Association's Ethics Committee. We'll also send a letter to the local newspaper. John, your reputation and the reputation of your firm in this community will never be the same. Brad, what game are you playing? John asked. Read it, I said. I know what you and Danny did to me to keep him from suing you, you bastard. You fired Brad and practically left me homeless. You're a fucking bastard. I wanted to jump across the table and beat him up. Stop, Karen. Let John read the letter, Brad said. You can't give this to the court. It will destroy me, and what proof do you have? Oh, John. Women love to gossip. Scott said. What do you mean, gossip? John asked, looking nervous. John, we've been interviewing your employees for months. You know your employees hate you, don't you? And what exactly did they tell you? John asked. Scott spoke again. He opened a folder containing a stack of pages with statements. He had precedents to back up his position. Scott calculated how much money I had lost in alimony, salary, and benefits. John was sweating when Scott handed him the tables. This is absurd, Brad, John said. These are all rumors. They won't hold up in court. John, Scott said with a broad smile, you have two options. 1. We settle out of court for $8 million plus our fees. Or 2. We see you in court. I need time to think, John said. You have time until you walk out the door. My secretary has a copy of the letter to the Ethics Commission in a FedEx package with prepared testimony that can be mailed. Either I get a signed agreement or it goes out, said my new best friend and future sex toy Scott. Karen, we were so close. How could you do this to me? Yes, John, we were close, but you only thought about yourself and financially ruined me to save your own skin. So go to hell. Oh, and John, Brad said, while you have the pen in your hand, sign this. What's this? John asked. It's an agreement to pay me $2 million, Brad said with a smile. For what? I had every right to fire you. I agree, John, but my career hasn't been particularly successful since you filed that complaint with the Ethics Commission, which resulted in a reprimand. So the agreement with Karen includes $2 million for me as well. John signed both agreements, and $8 million was transferred to my account. Was it excessive? Perhaps. But John's firm had grown over the past 3 years, and a lawsuit against it was the last thing he needed. I thought Scott was dreaming when he told me my compensation would be $8 million. But that little bastard did it. Scott had done his homework. He knew more about John's firm and the potential client than Brad or I did. This new client would not allow his legal advisor to be portrayed in a negative light. A settlement was in John's best interest and was his only way out. Get me $8 million, you pervert, and you can have me all week. That's what I told him. I could see that little pervert undressing me with his eyes. You've heard of the father complex. This pervert had a mother complex. Or maybe he just liked milk. Danny was next. But before we went after Danny, I went to Brad and asked for unpaid leave, which Brad happily agreed to. I wasn't sure if I wanted to leave or keep working now that I was rich. Then I went to HR and said that I was single, just like Scott, and that I was going to sleep with him. HR was shocked, but I didn't care. What could they do? Fire me? Little pervert Scott was the most shocked of all. A deal is a deal. I may be over 50, but I was going to shake up the world of this little pervert. Now it was Danny's turn and my dear daughter Debbie's. Donnie's ex-wife represented John's daughter, Laura, so Brad and Scott explained to her how important it was for Danny to sit down and talk to us. Now she knew what her father John had done to me, and she apologized. They told her that I was devastated by the divorce and that it was affecting my work. John made it sound like he had done me a favor. Instead of firing me, he demoted me. That fucking bastard. Knowing what had happened and that John had agreed to a settlement, she convinced Danny to meet with us instead of waiting for the court summons. Danny showed up with Laura and my daughter Debbie on either side of him. What's going on, Mom? Debbie was the first to lash out at me. Then Danny. Why am I here? Then my backup singer, Scott, spoke up. Everyone calm down. We want to settle all our issues amicably. Like adults, I said, looking at Debbie. Yes, like adults, Scott agreed. Thank you, Karen. Laura, Scott said, take a look at these documents. Laura glanced at them and turned to Danny. Is this true, Danny? What is it? Asked Danny and Debbie. It's the deed to the lake house that belongs to Danny and Karen. I couldn't hold my tongue any longer. Danny, I'll leave you homeless if you don't do what I ask. Mom, what's going on? My sweet daughter was now worried. Scott took the initiative. We had the lake house appraised, and it's now worth $1,800,000. And? Danny asked. Laura intervened and started whispering to Danny, but I interrupted her. I'm moving into my house, Danny. We'll have so much fun, I said with a big smile on my face. Over my dead body, Danny replied. Whatever you want, I replied. Can she do that? He asked, looking at Laura. You can buy her out. I don't have that kind of money, I laughed at Danny's comment. I have enough money to buy you out, Danny. I'll kick you and your happy family out, but I'm sure my daughter will take you in. There's still the issue of child support, Scott said. I've been paying child support for 3 years, Danny said, looking unhappy. Danny, I said in a normal tone. We can work something out, and I'll let you keep the lake house if you don't mind. And Debbie, you'll have to agree to some conditions too. Scott handed each of them a copy of his agreement, and Laura copies of both agreements. Danny looked miserable, and Debbie looked confused. We want everyone to sign and follow all the instructions while we're all here, Scott said. I handed them pens and laughed at them. Mom, what do you mean your daughter needs to hear the story of how her father tried to destroy her mother? What's going on? And can we talk about these holidays? Danny, are you going to sign the agreement and tell your daughter what a cruel father you were to her mother? I smiled broadly. And you, Debbie? What holidays don't work for you? I asked. You want the kids to be with you for all the holidays? What about their father? You're right. That's cruel of me. Dad can see his granddaughters on Thanksgiving, but Grandma will be with them on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. We'll celebrate at my house. Mom, you have a small apartment. Not anymore. Soon I might have a house on the lake. I couldn't stop laughing. I don't see Easter, my daughter said in an unpleasant tone. I left that holiday to you so you could see your husband's family. See how nice I am? 2 weeks in the summer, my daughter complained, continuing to read. Mom, you live in an apartment. First of all, I have my own house on the lake and a beautiful boat, and if Danny doesn't sign the papers, I'll have a second house on the lake. But that doesn't matter. I'll take my grandchildren and we'll have a wonderful time together. Where did you get all that money? My daughter looked very confused. Danny, tell Debbie the whole story, and Laura will explain to her why her mother is now rich as hell. Rich, said Danny. Hell no. Sign it and tell Debbie what you did to me. Tell her how you cheated me, or I'll buy you out and the lake house will be mine. Danny told Debbie the whole story, and she finally got mad at her father instead of me. How could you do that, Dad? I know you were angry, but that was cruel. By signing the agreement, Danny agreed to pay me $800 a month in alimony for the next 3 years. It was petty of me. To hell with him. Danny, I loved you and I regretted what I did. I just wanted to show you how sorry I was, but you didn't give me a chance. You just tried to ruin my life. Because of you and John, I lived in a shithole. I was on food stamps until Brad hired me. I had to take a deep breath and calm down. Even now, Danny, I still love you. But it's over between us and I know I have to move on. Danny was angrier now than when I cheated on him. He couldn't say anything. I walked over to the table and Danny stood up and hugged me. Why? Because it was part of the agreement he had signed. I will always love you, Danny, I repeated, reaching out my hand. Danny gave me the keys to his new Mustang. That was the last condition of the agreement. I got Danny's Mustang, but he had to continue paying for it and the insurance. Go on, Scott. Get in the driver's seat, I said, throwing the keys to Scott. It's time for us to get the first of many speeding tickets. Tim and I worked together at Premier Realty. When my daughter started high school, I wanted to find a part-time job. Tim and his wife lived 2 houses down from us, and we often spent evenings together at neighborhood parties. When I announced my intention to look for work, Tim arranged an interview for me. Although I mainly work in the office and Tim usually goes out to meet clients, he gradually seduced me. At first, I brushed off all the little compliments he gave me to make me feel sexy, but soon I began to look forward to them and appreciate them. I never intended to have an affair, but it happened. The combination of his mischievousness and his skill as a lover, who gave me the most explosive orgasms of my life, was enough to make me cheat on my husband again. Now we use my husband Sid's trips as an opportunity for forbidden adult entertainment. No one gets hurt, and no one is deprived of pleasure in the bedroom. Slowly getting dressed, we talked about the kids, school, and vacation plans. When he left the bedroom, I turned on the shower. I hadn't even gotten my feet wet when Tim burst into the bathroom and quietly closed the door. "He's sitting there with a gun." "What are you talking about? Who has a gun?" "Sid, he's in the kitchen with a gun." "Oh, shit." I quickly threw on a robe. "He's supposed to be in Washington. I talked to him this morning." "He's not in Washington, and I don't think we're going to survive." Did he say anything? No, I don't even know if he noticed me. I watched him for a few seconds. He was tapping the gun handle on the table and staring into space. Damn it, what should we do? My panicked response was useless. I don't know. I don't know. My head was spinning. My heart was pounding. I didn't think Sid was a violent man. Yes, he had a gun, but I couldn't remember the last time he'd been to the shooting range. We have bars on our windows. It's not that we live in a bad neighborhood, quite the opposite. Our neighborhood is so affluent that it attracts thieves. Better safe than sorry. We installed a security system after our neighbors lost nearly $100,000 in art and jewelry. I doubt we have that much, but probably not much less. Sid is a very successful investor. All I could think about was calling the police. If he came up the stairs looking for us, we were done for. 911, what's going on? My husband is sitting at the kitchen table with a gun in his hands. I'm afraid for my life. Where are you calling from? I'm hiding upstairs. Is anyone else with you? Yes, my friend. I've dispatched a unit. Can you let the police in? No, I can't get past him. I see. I'll let the police know. What is your name and your husband's name? My name is Polly, and his name is Sid Barrett. He's supposed to be in Washington. Okay, let me guess. Your friend isn't supposed to be there? I paused to gather my strength and replied, Yes, that's right. Good luck. The police may call you back if the situation drags on. Please don't hurt him. I can't promise that, Polly. Damn it. My heart stopped. Tim was hiding in my closet. I heard sirens approaching. I tiptoed through the bedroom and looked out the window. A patrol car with 2 officers pulled up 1 house down from us. Wearing bulletproof vests, they approached my front door with their guns drawn. The doorbell rang. A loud knock on the door drowned out the echo. I watched as one of the officers crept past the garage. We have a sliding glass door that leads to the backyard. From there, he could probably see Sid. The bathroom adjacent to the master bedroom has a window that overlooks the backyard. I tiptoed over to the window, which was open a few inches. The cop behind me covered it with the barrel of a large ash tree. He spoke quietly into a device attached to his collar. The situation remained the same. I quietly returned to the window facing the street. A second squad arrived. 2 more officers. This time they brought automatic weapons. I could only think of one thing. Please don't hurt Sid. Why didn't Sid let the officers in? God! Had he already hurt himself? Tears filled my eyes. One of the officers with an automatic weapon rushed into the yard. At that moment, I heard the loudspeaker. Sid Barrett, drop your weapon and come out. No one will get hurt. All I could hear was my own rapid breathing. There was no sound coming from the house. Come on, Sid, give up. The megaphone came on again. Sid, can you hear us? I quietly returned to the bathroom window. The police were talking on their radios. The officer with the rifle replied, "He's just sitting there banging the butt of his rifle on the table. Sounds like a Glock." "Don't shoot," came the reply. My cell phone rang. I answered in a whisper. "Hello? Polly, this is Captain Mandrell. Does your husband have any mental health issues?" I replied quietly. "No, nothing like that. He's not an aggressive person and would rather shoot himself than hurt anyone." "We have to take safety precautions. If he doesn't put the weapon down, we'll have to neutralize him." With a lump in my throat, I pleaded, "Please don't hurt him." The loudspeaker continued. "Sid, raise your hands if you can hear us." A minute of silence passed before the officer's radio crackled. "Take his weapon." Before I could comprehend the meaning of those words, a white cloud of smoke erupted from the rifle. The sound broke my heart. They shot Sid. No one moved. The officer said into the radio, "The weapon has fallen from his hands. He's not moving. He may be dead. Approach with caution." I couldn't hold back a scream. "No!" With rifles and pistols at the ready, 2 officers stepped into the courtyard. I lost sight of them. Making my way to a window facing the street, I saw an ambulance and 2 more police cars. The crowd rushed to the front door and I heard noise on the first floor. My cell phone rang again. "Polly, you need to get down on the floor. Your friend, too. We'll be upstairs soon." "How's Sid?" "He's in a catatonic state. Get on the floor, now!" I screamed, "Tim, get on the floor or they'll shoot you." The closet door opened and Tim threw himself onto the carpet. I felt the bedroom door open. The hinge creaked slightly. "Don't move!" After searching us, they helped us to our feet. "My husband! What have you done to my husband?" "He's alive. They're loading him into the ambulance." At that moment, sirens wailed, and they drove away. Please let Sid be alive. When I went outside, I learned that they had knocked the gun out of Sid's hands. He didn't react, just sat there and stared. There was a wound on his arm. The bullet had gone through the kitchen window, shattering the glass. They had also kicked the door open from the garage into the house. The police took Tim's statement, and then he left without looking at me. His wife was yelling at him, and I doubt their marriage will survive. When I was questioned, I tried to answer honestly, at least about why Tim was there. It was over an hour before I was allowed to leave to check on Sid. The hospital staff was friendly, but no one gave me any meaningful information. It was several more hours before Sid's attending physician gave me the latest news. "Mrs. Barrett, I'm Dr. Schaffer. In addition to losing a finger on one hand, your husband has suffered a traumatic brain injury. This is usually caused by severe shock. What happened at your home today?" "Sid apparently left this morning for a meeting in Washington. A gentleman came to my house, and when he was about to leave, he found Sid sitting in the kitchen with a gun." "Is it possible that Sid saw you with your friend and that provoked the attack?" "It's possible. I was having sex with my neighbor." "Did Sid know about this relationship?" "Not as far as I know." "Almost certainly, he discovered you and decided to kill you. Shortly after he found the gun, he must have snapped." "Is Sid responding in any way?" "Visually, no. He responds to electrical impulses, but that's all. Most of his responses come from the brainstem, not from cognitive functions." "Can I try talking to him?" "If you don't mind." Dr. Schaffer led me into Sid's room. "Sid, I love you," was all I managed to say before Sid opened his eyes and started screaming like a baby with colic. It was a high-pitched, continuous scream. Dr. Schaffer immediately covered my mouth with his hand and pushed me out of the room. "I'm sure you're the cause of Sid's mental disorder. What you did was beyond his comprehension." It was difficult to call my daughter. Rhonda and Sid were very close, like father and daughter. She is a junior in college. Last summer, she broke up with Paul, her high school boyfriend. He wanted to try other women, and Rhonda, having tried other men, decided she would spend her remaining 2 years in college making up for lost time. Paul had repeatedly tried to rekindle their relationship, but to no avail. "Hi, Mom. I saw you called a few times. What's wrong?" "It's your father. He had a severe epileptic seizure and is now at the university hospital under observation." "My God! When did this happen?" "This morning." "In Washington?" "No, at our house. I don't know why he wasn't in Washington." "Can I visit him?" "I don't know. They won't let me into his room. He doesn't respond when I try to talk to him." "Mom, I have an important exam tomorrow. I can't leave, but I have to be there if he needs me." "Honey, he doesn't recognize anyone right now. Stay and take your exam. I'll tell him you wanted to be here if he becomes more responsive." My new life began. The first few weeks were the hardest. I fell asleep in tears, knowing that I had caused Sid pain. Checking with the hospital staff to see if there were any changes in Sid's condition was very depressing. He sat, stood, or lay alone, and didn't respond to anything except the recorded sound of my voice. His frightened cries tore my heart apart. What had I done to him? Would he ever forgive me? Even 8 weeks after the accident, he screamed when he heard my voice. They tried visual stimuli, but even when Sid was shown my photo, his brain showed almost no response. It took time to sort out the finances. I cut back on all non-essential expenses. The loss of Sid's income began to weigh on me, and I had to draw up a budget and stick to it strictly. Depending on our insurance and how long it lasted, I would have to start liquidating our investments to make ends meet. Weeks turned into months. Sid was admitted to the psychiatric ward of a treatment facility. Insurance covered treatment for up to 3 years, so time passed. I changed jobs, mainly to be around people who didn't know my past. If a man started courting me, I rejected him with complete hostility. My first job didn't last long because I had anger issues. After a few anger management sessions, I learned to control my emotions. I'm pleasant to talk to, but I become cold if someone flirts with me. Men understand this signal, and I can do my job in peace. Gradually, Rhonda learned that Sid had found Tim and me at the house. I lost my daughter, at least for a while. 10 months and a few days after the incident, Sid came to. The doctor said that Sid was no longer responding to my voice. I couldn't wait to see her in the psychiatric ward. "Sid, I'm so glad you're better." "Who are you?" I froze in shock and felt the blood rush to my legs. "I'm Polly, your wife." "I don't think so. If you were my wife, I would recognize you and feel butterflies in my stomach. You probably look like someone I knew, but I don't remember loving you." He turned away as if he didn't want to talk to me. "Sid, don't say that. We have a daughter. I love you and you love me." "I'm sorry, I don't remember loving you. I heard you mention children. Did you say we have 1 or 2? The nurse pulled me by the arm and led me out of the room. "Give him time, Polly." I've seen reactions like this before. I went into Sid's room several times during the day. His reaction was completely neutral. It was as if we had never met. He treated me the same way he treated the nurses. Unfortunately, he rejected all my attempts to do anything that the nurses didn't do. It was as if Sid had lost all memory of me. Rhonda flew out on the first flight and arrived in the middle of the night. After a few hours of sleep, she went to visit Sid. I tried to warn her that he might not recognize her, but my heart was breaking. Sid recognized Rhonda and was overjoyed. I watched them from across the room. Sid expressed his shock at losing 10 months of his life. They hugged, they kissed, they hugged. I cried. Raising his right hand, he asked Rhonda, "How many fingers do I have on my hand?" Rhonda told him about the shooting. They laughed, hugged, and kissed again. Tears streamed down my face. "What happened to your mom?" Sid asked. "She's still alive," Rhonda replied, "but you probably wouldn't recognize her." You know, I've been trying to remember her name, but even when people say it, it doesn't mean anything to me. Polly, right? That's right. Did they show you a picture of her? That's another strange thing. They tell me that even a few minutes after they show me a picture of her, I forget her face. Tears streamed down my face. His brain wouldn't let me exist anymore. I meant less than nothing to him. Rhonda's hurt look only intensified my pain. Rhonda resumed her relationship with Sid. I stayed out of it. I was like a nurse assigned to take care of him. A week after returning home, Sid resumed his daily bargaining. When I learned that my conversations with Sid had also disappeared from his memory, my heart broke again. I was at a crossroads. Was it worth the risk that Sid would eventually recognize me? That risk also meant that Sid could relapse. Not wanting to jeopardize Rhonda's future with her father, I left. With the help of Rhonda, who was helping Sid with financial matters, we decided that I should file for divorce. Sid signed the papers without discussion. The monthly alimony was more like pocket money. Unfortunately, Tim is the last person I've had sex with. I don't want anyone but Sid, but I doubt that's possible in the future. My life consists of hard work and regular conversations with my daughter. I still see Sid from time to time, but the fear of relapse keeps me at a distance. My selfish decisions have forced me to live in my own hell. Rhonda doesn't want me to come over when she's with her father. I've sadly accepted that I can't have a relationship with Sid. Every day gets harder.